Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy. Welcome to The Last Lap, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down everything we saw from Talladega Superspeedway. But before we hop into the video, just want to remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it if you did that. And you can also check out our social media pages, which are linked down in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the episode. Matthew, my friend and co-host, is joining me on the other side of the screen. Before he gets all his glory in this video, though, I do want to quickly show you guys a new diecast I got added to the collection. It is Chase Elliott's 2022 Atlanta win. It's got all that confetti on there. Love that. Matthew's Talladega race win hopefully has as much confetti as this one. But anyways, I'm glad that Matthew's driver won today because I've had a very long day. I was out over the weekend at a church retreat weekend thingy and woke up super early today. Drove back and all that stuff. So I'm glad Matthew's driver won today because he's going to provide all the energy that he's probably going to provide both our energy combined just from him today. So thankfully his driver won so he could do that for us. But Matthew, how you feeling? You were like 30 minutes late to recording the episode, so I don't know what the heck you were doing. I don't see like a major outfit change, so I don't know if you were just partying or celebrating. I don't know what you're doing, but you're finally here.
Don't worry
So
about me.
you're finally here. So how do you feel?
15 long years. It has been that long since KFB won a super speedway race that was a points race. It has been 15 years. Until today. How about that, Rowdy Nation? Whew. I mean, the last time he won a super speedway race, I was literally only 8 years old. I'm 23 now. It's been that long. And man. But before we get into all that, I do want to say congratulations to Jeb Burton with his Xfinity win at Talladega in the Xfinity series, but also, more importantly, to Jordan Anderson getting his first win as an owner in NASCAR. Of course, you know the story of Jordan Anderson with Talladega last year with his truck on fire, and was able to recover his first time back there since, and he was able to get in victory lane as an owner. So I'm extremely happy for Jordan Anderson there. So I want to say that before, and yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah, I unfortunately was not watching the Xfinity race, but I did see all of the highlights. Lots of crazy and scary accidents. Thankfully, everybody is okay, and Jeb Burton did get the win. So congratulations to him. But let's go ahead and hop into this Cup race. And the speculation going into the Cup race was that it was going to be a pretty much a replica of Daytona, I guess, where it was just two lanes the whole race. Nobody could really move or get out of line. Thankfully, some of that wasn't true, but some of it was true at the same time. But we'll get further into that later. But there were some green flag pit stops in stage number 1 and 2 drivers ended up spinning out coming down to pit road. The first was Tyler Reddick. He actually hit the inside wall. He was able to somehow keep going, but he spun out coming to pit road, lost control of his car, hit the inside wall. And then Chase Briscoe, he did the same thing. He spun out coming down pit road, trying to slow down under a green flag pit stop. Spun out. I think he blew 2 tires and he wasn't able to get moving, so they had to throw the caution for him. Didn't throw the caution for Reddick. They did throw the caution for Chase Briscoe. Chase Elliott would win the first stage. This was a great sight to me after his top 10 last week at Martinsville. Seeing him run well at Talladega gives me a little bit of hope / confidence that he'll hopefully be able to get a win and make his way into the playoffs. So good to see him running up front. I don't think the leg is really an issue, thankfully. So good to see him up there. In stage 2, Joey Logano, he sped during a green flag pit stops, and then when the field comes around to try and lap him, he decides to not park his car, but, move his car to the middle of the racetrack and basically make the whole field make a decision whether they're going to run him over or split him like this and go around him and put him 3 wide. And they ended up doing that. And, you have to do what you have to do to keep in the draft, I guess. But I thought that was a pretty risky move by Joe Logano there, and I think it worked. I think he got the free pass after at that end of the stage, I think. But man, that was a pretty scary incident there. Thankfully, no wreck or anything like that. The end of stage 2, Eric Almirola made a pass on Chase Elliott in the tri-oval. Almirola went to the high side. Kevin Harvick, his teammate, went with him, and Almirola was able to get past Chase Elliott and win the second stage. Stage 3, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So Harrison Burton and Noah Gragson, they were first and second place going down the backstretch into turn number 3. Gragson just barely taps Harrison Burton in just the wrong spot, just going into the corner. Gets Burton a little bit squirrely. He loses control of the car, somehow keeps the car on the apron and saves it. But behind him, there was an accident for people trying to avoid the wreck. Austin Dillon got involved, Zane Smith and Austin Hill. Those three would unfortunately have to end their day. But heck of a save by Harrison Burton to be able to keep control of that race car and keep it going after he spun out. And then Joey Logano, kind of the same incident, just on the other side of the track, off of turn number 2. He got a bump from Corey LaJoie just as they were barely exiting turn number 2. They weren't quite on the straightaway yet. With these cars, or with any, kind of bump drafting, you have to bump. You can pretty much only bump down the straightaways. If you bump when you're barely coming out of the corner, almost on the straightaway, it's really hard to keep the car straight. So that's what happened. Joey Logano got bumped, and he ended up getting sent into the outside wall. Collected a lot of other drivers, and that was set up the first overtime finish. And actually, to preface everything going on, this was also a fuel strategy race, because a lot of drivers were really close to being out of fuel, and they had to conserve fuel, so there was a lot of suspense going around that. People weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it with this overtime restart, so they did the first overtime restart. On the front row is Ryan Blaney and Noah Gragson, who had been up there for probably the last, towards the end of the race. Noah Gragson was up there and had a chance at winning the race. But it was Ryan Blaney and Noah Gragson on the front row. Ross Chastain was behind Noah Gragson. And Ross just kind of bumps Noah Gragson and gets him loose in turn 1. Ross Chastain decides to move to the inside, or the middle, between Ryan Blaney and Noah Gragson. And they make contact, and that ends up triggering a wreck and a really, really big crash. Really hard impact for Ryan Preece and Kyle Larson. So if you guys could see, I think it's the onboard of Ryan Preece's car. Kyle Larson's kind of shooting back up the racetrack, and Ryan Preece hits the gas to try and get past Kyle Larson before he comes up the track, and that did not work. So Ryan Preece pretty much nailed Kyle Larson in the right door of the car, almost at full speed. So a very hard crash. You can see Ryan Preece's in-car camera. I think it knocked his visor up like this. It was that bad of a hit. And the right side of Kyle Larson's car, the side is like curled up and bent, and even like the roll bar above where the window is, that's like caved in and dented. So it was a really hard hit. Very glad that both those drivers are okay. But that would set up a second overtime finish, and Kyle Busch was able to take the lead on the restart. He was able to jump out ahead, but Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace, they were able to pass him back, and they took the white flag. Bubba Wallace was in the lead. He kind of went tried to go to the bottom of the track going into turn 1, and Ryan Blaney bumped him, and Bubba got a little bit loose. He saved it, and then Blaney tried to make a pass on the outside of Bubba, and Bubba went up the track and threw a block and ended up making contact. Bubba saved it again, almost, and then he ended up spinning and wrecking another pretty big wreck on the final lap. And Kyle Busch was in the lead when the caution flag came out, so he was able to come back around the racetrack and take the checkered flag. Thankfully, he was able to have enough fuel to get around, because if he didn't, that would not have been good. But he did run out of fuel as he did his burnout, I believe. But Kyle Busch ends up getting the win, his second win of the season, his first win at Super Speedway since 2008. So quite a long time for Kyle Busch to not get a Super Speedway win. So glad he was able to get that done. Let me quickly go over the results, and then I'll go over my few points, and then Matthew can have the rest of the show to himself to enjoy, and have fun. But we got Kyle Busch in first, and then we got a lot of Fords here, 2 through 5, Blaney, Buescher, Briscoe. Keselowski fifth, he was never really up at the front of the field. He just kind of hung in the back for most of the race, just because he didn't like how the Fords were working together, I guess, according to his radio, and it was kind of hard to make your way up to the front. But Brad Keselowski ends up fifth. Eric Jones, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Daniel Suarez ninth. Todd, so I'm going to go past the top 10 here. So 10th is Todd Gilliland, and then 11th, J.J. Yeley, 14th, Ty Dillon, and 18th, B.J. McLeod. So great run for those guys. That we usually don't see those cars up near the front of the field, so good run for them. Todd Gilliland actually not in the 38 car this week. It was Zane Smith in the 38, I think. Yeah. So great run for Todd Gilliland there. But yeah, post-race thoughts. We saw both of the rookies at the front of the field late in the race today. We saw Ty Gibbs and Noah Gragson both at the front of the field, so I thought that was really cool. I bet they gained a lot of good experience, even though Noah Gragson, he spun Harrison Burton, and then he got put 3 wide on the restart and ended up getting wrecked. I'm sure he'll learn a lot to apply to the next Super Speedway race that he does. And Ty Gibbs was at the front of the field leading the top lane for a lot of the third stage there, so great to see them up at the front of the field. The Super Speedway package, I do still think it needs some work. Denny Hamlin on his podcast the past week or two has really given a good in-depth explanation of like what's wrong with the Super Speedway package. You just can't, if they're trying to make a third lane, like if you pull out of the second lane and try to make a third lane by yourself, you're not really going to go anywhere. You're going to need 4, 5, 6, 7 cars to make that work. And it did happen a few times throughout the race today, but the third lane would just fade. It would get a really big rush of momentum and be able to make its way to the front. Maybe one person would get clear and be able to jump over to the middle lane, and then everybody else would just sink right to the back and have to try to find their way back in one of the 2 lanes. But yeah, the Super Speedway package does still need some work. Today it wasn't too bad, but it was a track position race. You just kind of had to be towards the front of the field late in the race, and whatever happened, happened. And the fuel strategy actually really helped with track position as well, with people, running out of fuel, people pitting, stuff like that. Kyle Busch originally was going to pit before that final overtime restart, but he stayed out and was able to have the track position and win the race. So that was a good call by his crew chief there. I pretty much already talked about the Larson and Priest hard hit, but Kyle Larson's car will be taken to the R&D center for them to look at as far as the crash is concerned and what the car did and improvements they could make. I think that's a very smart decision, just because I haven't seen a NASCAR race car in general with the roll bar pretty much bent like that where it was. So great decision by NASCAR. Hopefully they can learn some stuff from that. And I'll talk about Kyle Busch too at the end. But Bubba's block, he admitted to it in his post-race interview that it was his fault that he threw that block. It was a bad block. And there's mixed takes on this. I get that you have to race for the win and you have to quote unquote do whatever you can to win. But at the same time, if Bubba doesn't throw that block and lets Ryan Blaney go, he could fall back and draft right back up to him and try to make a move in the tri-oval, So, in my opinion, I would much rather have a race car and, have a chance to get back to the lead instead of just throw a Hail Mary block and 50-50 chance, if it works, it's great. If not, I'm wrecked, But, yeah, obviously a bad block there by Bubba. Hopefully he doesn't get too much criticism. I know he's one of the more criticize drivers in NASCAR, um, partly because of his attitude and this and that and the other thing. But I thought his interview was pretty good today. He wasn't too hard on himself. I know he's kind of like Chase Elliott in that perspective where he's really hard on himself, but he didn't seem too bad, too down on himself today, thankfully. But yeah, Bubba put together a great race today. Hopefully, he'll be able to um, learn something from this experience and apply it to the next one. But finally, I'll talk about Kyle Busch real quick. Great run for him. Obviously, it was kind of a lucky win, but super speedways, you know, that so you just have to be in the right place at the right time, especially when there's a wreck on the final lap like that. I wish we would have a lot more finishes where they were able to get back around to the checkered flag. I'm not saying that shouldn't have been a caution. It definitely should have been a caution. It was a big wreck, but I just wish that they wouldn't wreck so bad that the caution had to come out. I wish they'd be able to race back to the line. It's a lot more fun and exciting that way, especially like the Talladega Fall race last year. I know it's a tiny bit biased because Chase Elliott won, but that was a heck of a finish. I mean, they were side by side that entire final lap, and it was a near photo finish. So I just wish we would get to see a lot more finishes like that instead of people throwing crazy blocks and wrecking the whole field and the caution having to come out and the winner being declared that way. But anyways, back to Kyle Busch. Great for him. 2 wins on the season already. Matthew predicted he was going to have, I don't know, 4 or 5, something like that. So far so good as far as that prediction goes. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get out of the way. Matthew, what do you have to say about what you saw today from Talladega?
All right, so as far as the racing product goes for Talladega today, I thought yeah, there's still some things that need to tweak on, but I thought they were able to form up a third lane of the high lane a little bit better than they did at Daytona, and especially at Atlanta. And I felt like we saw a lot more 3 wide racing than we did those first 2 super speedway races this year. So there is a little bit, but at the same time, still needs some work on. In my opinion, they should do what they did with the Gen 6 cars the last couple of years, where they put the big spoilers on top, and then put like air ducts in the grill, and you get a good run. Obviously, I don't want a huge run like what we had back then, but at least something of a run to help carry some momentum. So that's my thing. Yeah, I think they can apply to that. But other than that, I thought it was still a good race in my opinion. I mean, it's better than a single file long train, 1 lane, or a big old wreck fest where there's only like 5 cars left. So I thought it was a good balance today, in my opinion. Um, First and foremost, of course, gotta address the elephant in the room here with Kyle Busch winning. Um, First of all, I feel bad for Bubba Wallace, but at the same time, you gotta know better, and you can't be throwing blocks like that. But I mean, you can't necessarily blame him for that. I mean, he he was just doing what he thought in the moment was the right move to win the race. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I mean, these drivers, you gotta make an action like quick like that. You don't have time to think, especially when you're on that last lap. So, I mean, you can't necessarily, blame him for, at least trying to defend his position, but that still wasn't a good block. So, I mean, I do feel bad for him. I would have been even more mad at him if he was just that close to Kyle's car that took Kyle out somehow. I would have been so mad. But whew, man, that was way too close for comfort, in my opinion. That was way too close. But yeah, not the best move there, but don't necessarily blame him for that. And this is Kyle Busch's first win on a super speedway in 15 years. The last time he won a super speedway race that was a points race, not the clash, not the duels, a points paying race, was his win in the July Daytona race, all the way back in 2008. And There's a funny statistic right here that I've noticed. All three of Kyle's Speedway wins, 2008 Talladega, 2008 Daytona, July, and of course today at Talladega, he always won under caution, and the wreck happened in turn one and two. That I found it must be a coincidence here. All three of his Super Speedway race wins have ended under caution by a big wreck that happened in turn one and two. I mean, that is insane. But I'm not necessarily complaining because it'd be a little too nerve wracking for me if he made it all the way around. He probably would have gone past, knowing the luck. But his super speedway career has been defined as absolutely unlucky. Unlike today, his super speedway racing career has been absolutely unlucky because he always get caught up in a wreck, or he'll always have bad timing on the last lap where he may have had the lead of the white flag, but it then came home the winner. So it just seemed like something would always happen. And I feel like ever since he's came to Richard Childress, I noticed that he's been way more competitive in these super speedway races than he did with JGR, in my opinion. I mean, he should have won Daytona 500. That's just me. He looked pretty good at Atlanta, in my opinion. He did finish top 10 and led some laps. And today, he may not have the best car today. I mean, he was stuck in the middle of the pack the whole time. I mean, can't really. It's kind of hard to move up the field with the package right now, but I mean, he was able to avoid some of the chaos at the end, and he was able to save enough gas, unlike the some of the leaders who had to pit on that last caution. So he put himself right in a nice position there, and he had the lead coming the way until Bubba Wallace passed. I'm like, oh, here we go again, wrong timing again. But thanks to Bubba's bad block there, um, now things worked out pretty well. So man, feels so good to finally win, for him to finally win on the super speedway once again, and congrats to him. Um, as far as the running order, the RFK cars, both cars finished top five, which is interesting because both of those cars were nowhere near to be found all day today. I don't know why. I mean, it was kind of surprising. I mean, I picked those two cars in my fantasy just because they're always good super speedways, but they were nowhere near to be found until the end, at least. And they both came out with top five, so that's very impressive. Of course, I gotta give a shout out to Todd Gilliland, another top 10, which once again he is absolutely making Front Row Motorsports look absolutely stupid for making him run part time in that 38 car. And look, I'm not hating on Zane Smith here. He's a very talented guy. I mean, he is a truck champion. I'm not hating on him at all. I'm just don't understand why you want to take a sophomore driver who, I mean, from the expectations, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of expectations, but he's been doing pretty good. For him to just suddenly be a part time driver all of a sudden in that car. And once again, he proved it that, hey, they look stupid again. Because Zane Smith almost pretty much finished almost dead last from crashing. So I mean, I'm pulling for Todd Gilliland here. I'm hoping he continues to prove Front Row Motorsports that they made a very stupid decision. So happy for Todd Gilliland. Um, but I mean, the race itself today, it wasn't, a big old wreck fest. It wasn't a single file train. Well, I mean, it was a double file train. Let's just say that. But at least they were side by side instead of a single file. So I thought the race it was just good. Let's just say that it was just good. Not the best, but also not the worst. Let's just say that. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna take me a while to comprehend that Kyle Busch finally won a super speedway again after so long ago, man. I mean, like I said, I was 8 years old the last time he won a super speedway race. That was a points race. I mean, back then, Tony Stewart was still driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon were still in their prime. Dale Jr. was in his first year at Hendrick. I mean, man, it's just, it's, I mean, it's just been so long. And I never thought this day would ever come again. Um, Because I always have low expectations. I don't expect him to win. I just expect him trying to survive, basically. But finally, he was able to survive one. And I'll be looking forward to getting that McLaren custom grill car on the shelf here in a few months. Um, by the way, I checked out McLaren Custom Grills, the website right after the race, and the website crashed because all the fans were going into it after seeing what's up. But that's a good sponsorship exposure right there. But yeah, I think that wraps it up. Once again, very happy today. But yeah, it was just a good Talladega race.
Yeah, you don't have to date both of us too much there. 15 years ago is a long time ago. We were both. I was probably 8. You were probably 9 at the time. So yeah, don't date us too much, please. We're already getting old enough. But yeah, these super speedway races, they're just some people are just naturally good at it, and some people are just naturally unlucky at it. And Kyle Busch seems to fall in that latter category. But he's finally able to get that monkey off his back and get another super speedway win. And honestly, I'm pulling for him to eventually get the Daytona 500 to complete the crown jewel set because he's won all the other crown jewel races except the Daytona 500. So I'm rooting for him to hopefully be able to get that someday. But let's go ahead and rate this race for me. Man, I don't know. I think I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I honestly don't remember what I gave the Daytona 500, but I thought this was probably just as good, if not better, than the Daytona 500. I liked that there was some 3-wide racing and that the third groove could somewhat get to the front of the field. The only thing I really missed from this race is like a genuine good finish. I just don't like when races end under caution. But sometimes they end under caution, and that's just the way it is. But for me, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Matthew, what are you going to rate this race?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's just a good race. We'll just say that. It's not a wreck fest. It's not a single file line. But yeah, 7 out of 10. I know it went long, and I'm trying to wrap this up because I kind of talked too long.
Alright, well, yeah, we both kind of talked too long, but this is our first video back in a little bit, actually, not face-to-face, but, camera to camera. But, yeah, as for our fantasy points update, once again today, you ended up getting more points than me once again. You got 21 more points than me. You got 162. I got 141. And as for our total points, I am 129 points behind. Whew, that's a gap. But you're at 1670. I'm at 1541. So you have a pretty commanding lead over me. I think you're like 4th and I'm 6th or whatever in our little NASCAR Fantasy League thing. But anyways, I don't know. Did you talk about the Kyle Larson Ryan Preece thing? If not, that could be your quick closing remark before we finish up.
Not really. I mean, I'm glad both of them are okay. That was a bizarre hit right there. I don't think we've seen a hit like that in a long time, even with the next gen car. So glad NASCAR R&D is going. I mean, they're going to take that car to NASCAR R&D Center. Hopefully they find a fix for that because I'm glad that's the passenger side. I mean, I'm not even going to want to think about what would have happened if it was the other side. So yeah.
Alright, well, that is going to wrap it up for this video. A little bit longer video, but a fun video, informative video. We love doing these very good, I guess you could, hopefully good in your eyes, video This is episode 176 that we've been doing this, at least the face-to-face videos. We've thrown some vlogs in there too, so can't believe we've made it this far. We hope you guys have enjoyed the content so far. We try our best to make it better for you guys every now and then. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this video. Next week is Dover. So we'll be coming out with a preview video probably sometime later this week. But until next time, we'll see you guys in our next video.